Thank you all for coming. I have the honor of introducing Dr. Anna Farzindar to all of you. She has a fascinating life story that involves starts in Tehran, stops in Paris, Montreal, and now Los Angeles. Prior to coming to LMU and serving as a clinical professor in computer science, not communication studies, she taught for 10 years at the University of Southern California. She holds a PhD in computer science from the University of Montreal and an additional PhD from Sorbonne University of Paris. She is a very accomplished scholar with 30 papers and 5 books, at least one of which will flash across the screen up here, that include topics such as artificial intelligence, natural language processing, social media analysis, interdisciplinary data science, healthcare, predictive machine learning. Those are all a big mouthful of things that I don't personally know quite very much about, which is part of why I'm here to learn from her. In short, Dr. Anna Farzindar is a multi-talented goddess with other talents that you may not be aware of that I want to highlight before she speaks. One of those talents is on display right now, which is her artwork. There is an ongoing art exhibition down below us, and they are at the first floor of the library where you can see her artwork on display. And that's not the first time she's had exhibitions. Previously, she's had exhibitions in Montreal that included a book called 1001 Nights, which is a book of her artwork that looks at the role of women in society. She is also an entrepreneur who founded and was the CEO of NLP Technologies Incorporated, a Montreal startup. Something else you might not know about her, and she doesn't always claim very much, is that she's also an author. And I don't mean in terms of academic scholarship, I mean short story work that has appeared in Persian publications. And in fact, frequently on Sunday mornings, she gets up and does a writing class with people online where she tries to perfect her craft at writing. And I could just say that on the days when she has been doing things like artwork or writing, she is an extremely happy person. Her joy is undoubtedly in her creative works, even though she is a very talented scholar as well. She's also a mother with 2 daughters who are currently enrolled at Loyola Marymount University, so she's deeply ingrained in the university in a variety of ways that I think make her invested in the success of Loyola Marymount. And finally, she is my partner and an occasional co-author. She has become, because of my influence, a jam band aficionado who can occasionally be found dancing at concerts across Los Angeles and even such luminary locations as Red Rocks in Colorado, and here in Los Angeles at places like the Kia Forum, where I have drugged her to a variety of shows. We also served as co-authors at the Fish Studies Conference at Oregon State University this past summer, and I mean fish as in the band, the rock band, not the things that swim in the sea, for those of you who don't understand what I'm getting at. So she has a lot of talents, and I'm absolutely honored to be able to introduce her today, and I am very excited to hear what she has to say, because I always learn things when I'm talking to Anna. Dr. Farzindar.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. So the reason that we are here, we are celebrating the preview of the 4th edition of the upcoming book for the natural language processing for social media. So just as an addition of the this new edition, we will discuss about not only the algorithm, the technology, and all the AI for social media, but also the roles of what is ethical AI in social media, what is the future of online discourses. So I think these are the very important aspects that we should consider that. So I spent 25 years on developing the algorithm, but now considering the situation, so AI is everywhere. So the discussion about the responsible AI and that it's the responsibility of everybody is very important. So a little bit about myself. I work 25 years in the AI, natural language processing, and recently at LMU I joined last year, so I focused on the responsible AI and ethics of AI. So my personal interest is the painting, so I studied art in Paris, and now my focus is how we can learn from the original painting as a prompt to the generative AI, and what we get as an output, how we can highlight the problem of generative AI. And now I use those aspects in my lecture with my students in the discourse, because visually it's much more has the meaning than they just talk for hours about the bias. So I just mentioned, for example, the first painting that you see here is the watercolor painting about the Middle East woman, and the images are the woman on the circuit, so I call it the motherboard with the Persian pattern. And then the next to that is the generative AI, and you might spot some of the problem of the generative AI. So as you can see, the generative AI, in this case, it was used the OpenAI DALL-E 2, and then you can see that's the Western woman, blue eyes. So the message is not completely passed through the generative AI. So visually we can see better what's the problem, because today is the we have the black box, and how we go through this black box, it's hard for the computer scientists, but I would say that's extremely important for raising the public awareness to use the AI with the more consciousness and the responsible AI. So a little bit of introduction about the AI and social media. I would say the first edition of the book is published in 2014, so it's almost 11 years ago. And the reason that we had this fourth edition is because basically this field of the AI it's very dynamic, especially when we are talking about the natural language processing is really, really dynamic, and then we needed to update more and more. So this book is co-authored with my colleague Diana Inkman from University of Ottawa, and we are working on the new version that will be published with the Springer's publication. So back in 2014, 11 years ago, social media was the most important source of the data. So now we are talking about the big data, the sensors and everything, they're gathering the data, the microphone, recording. But, many years ago, all this information is stored from social media. So now that social media shifted from, user generate lots of the content, it's shifted now with the more commercial targets. So that's why after this presentation, I have a Gen Z input. So my students from the different departments, we will have the panel of that, so they will tell us what they think, and then if they have a question, or if you have a question, we are here to answer it. So as I said, the use of AI in social media, it was, we extensively use it for example, personalized recommendation, like Instagram. If you are interested in cooking, you will receive the post about the cooking. As soon as you are changing your interest, that will adapt it live to your needs. Or friend suggestion or connection to the Facebook. Personally, I use a lot LinkedIn for the professional networking, or public discourse. It used to call Twitter, now it's X, and I don't know now how many people are still on the Twitter or X, but at that time it was a big source of the information for the research community. But now, we have the other platform like Reddit, so and the subreddits that's bring the community together to discuss about that. That's an important source of information for us. And then, there are lots of the research, like, for example, what is the sentiment analysis on that, brand monitoring, political campaign. So I will talk about the different aspects, that's how we can use this social media, the different application, and then what are the challenges and the responsible AI. So we have some, computer scientists in the room, but we have people from the other department, and we talk a lot about AI. So now everywhere we go is AI, but just AI is a big umbrella for what we are doing. So if we narrow down this umbrella of artificial intelligence, which is the imitation of the human brain, we go to the machine learning. So machine learning is basically, we have an algorithm and we have the big data sets, and from the data we teach the machine to do some pattern analysis, do the some predictive model, prediction of what's happening in the future. So, and then if we narrow more, so the type of the algorithm now is extremely in use is a deep learning. So deep learning is in the contrast of the shallow learning. So the shallow learning has just a few layers of the neurons, but the deep learning is more deep. So the connection between the neurons and then all the mathematical calculation, the back and forth, what happening between this neuron, and then that is the transformers and the decoders. So that is the ways of the generative AI. So the generative AI basically that can generate a new content based on the data that we train on that. So the place of the natural language processing, we emphasize on natural language because natural language is a language that humans speak. So French, Persian, English. So the different language, that's the natural language for human. With the artificial language, which could be the Java programming, Python programming. So the goal of the natural language programming is we want to communicate with the machine, with the robot in the human language. Like when you're talking with your Siri, say, hey Siri, do that for me. So now my Apple Intelligence, so it's activated. So the goal is to communicate with the natural language. So when we are talking about the AI for the scientific community, we narrow down to the what basically you are talking about. We're talking about the social media and the social networks. So what is the social networks? So for you, how you see the social network? Why we call it social and why we call it networks? Any thoughts?
They're connected?
Yes, there are the nodes and the nodes are connected, exactly, like the network. So basically we have some set of actors. The actors could be human or it could be the organization, and they are connected through the different type of relationship. For example, on Facebook we have the friends type of relationship. On Instagram we have the follow relationship. So we have the different type of the relationship between that. And what is our goal as the computer scientists? We want to have the mathematical model and transform those data that is noisy and messy to a model. So how could we do that and analyze the social interaction, understanding how is this structure influenced to each other, how the community works together, and also how this structure change over time, because the time is extremely important for the social media, the nature of the time. So today there is a highlight of this topic, and then maybe later that's fade up and another topic goes up. So the nature of the social media over time changes. So how we can modelize this information, and it's how we do the social media analytics. It's basically, we have lots of the raw data. So what is the raw data? Is every noisy data that we have on the social media. And the first step, how we can collect it. So some of the platforms that let us to collect those data, some platforms they are more limited. So we should check all the license and accessibility and the permission to this data. And once we collect those data, we should inspect it. So what do we need to inspect our data? Because when we are doing the machine learning, we have a famous expression, garbage in, garbage out. If the data that we are working, it doesn't have the quality that we expect, we can't do, we are not magicians, we can't do expect the output is the high quality information. So the inspection is important, especially the provenance of the information. Have you ever heard about the provenance term? Mm-hmm. So the provenance is come from the journalism study. It's when we have some information, we want to go back and track back what is the source of this information, especially now with tons of the misinformation that we have on the social media, this task is crucial. Imagine, a company spent big amount of the money for market study, and they want to study a group of the consumer, and based on that, they want to open a new office in the new city, etc. But we are basing on the false reviews and the false information. So all the analysis that we are doing, it's not worthy. So it's very important, how we could inspect the source of our information, how they are trustworthy. And the pre-processing and the cleaning that we have, and after that we are talking about the data processing and then how we can transform and apply the natural language processing techniques and do the analysis. So how could we analyze the data? So I give you the tons of data and you said, okay, do something useful for me. How do you do that? So the first question that I usually ask is, what is your need? What do you want to do with those data? So definition of the task is a big part of the solution, because bunch of the noisy data, what you want to do with that. So how we can define the original task, what is the purpose of this job, and based on that, we can apply some algorithm, choose the appropriate algorithm, etc. And most of the tasks that comes from the business intelligence. So what is the business need for that? So, as more I'm talking here, maybe you get this feeling it's really interdisciplinary field that we are talking. It's not just the job of the computer scientists, or the data scientists, they do all of those jobs. So it's the interdisciplinary work, it's needed. So expressing of the need, expressing of the task, validation of this information, validation of the sources, and then goes to the algorithm, developing of algorithm, and then use it. So the aspect of interdisciplinary is really important. So why social media is so challenging? Analyzing of social media is challenging because most of the algorithms that we have and developed during the past 20 years is based on the text which is very well written, like LA Times, we have the scientific papers, those kind of data that we have is extremely well written. But now we have the algorithm with a good measure and the quality, but now we want to apply on those type of data to the social media, and it's not working. So it's no wonder, because the nature of the social media is so different. So the nature is the high volume, the social nature of that, the people talk to each other, like a subreddit, they have a topic, they communicate with each other. The time is important, the geospatial is important. The geospatial is important, sometimes I'm talking about a topic, we are in Silicon Beach, and in California, we are talking about the one topic, and everybody's aware of that, they have a good opinion. And then I give exactly the same type of a discussion in a conference in a global term. And I said, the people comes from across the globe, they comes from China, they come from Dubai, they come from the different countries, and each of them, they have a different opinion. So it's important, to consider this geospatial aspect, and when you are analyzing a specific task, this geospatial aspect is extremely important. It's not one algorithm and one solution for everybody. What we are doing that here in California. We develop one algorithm and we deploy quickly for the rest of the globe. So, and as I said, the geospatial coding is important, the emotional analysis is important, and neology. There are lots of the neologism in the social media. What is a neologism?
A constructed one.
Yeah, these are the terms that we didn't have it in the dictionary or in the past. So when the machine wants to analyze the text, like for example, Obamacare. Before the Obama administration, we didn't have this term. But after the Obama administration, this term has become regular, and then when you have the healthcare or the insurance run, the information on the data, so this new term should be considered. So we have lots of the neologism in the social media, that we should consider that. And the credibility and rumor of the information is very important. So once again, it's the unstructured data that we have that's written by everyday people. It's not written only by the journalists or the people they are extremely good at writing. It's written in every languages. You know how many languages that we have as a natural language? You know, I think Google, they analyze 75 languages, but we have more. Maybe Jared can mention a couple of more languages for the Native American or for the, the other communities. So, and then, that comes from the World Wide Web. So I'll give you an example of how the language of the social media is complicated. This is one of the tweets that comes from the movie that was presented in Festival de Cannes. It was a Persian director who won the award from the Festival de Cannes, and then he has 2 times Oscar winner. So he had a movie, so that was the text that was introduced by the Festival de Cannes. So it's a hashtag red carpet. So this is the, is it a part of the sentence or it's separate from the sentence? So it's a little bit ambiguous. So, red carpet, فروشنده, parenthesis, le client, / the salesman, close parenthesis. So basically, فروشنده, it was the Persian name of this movie. Le client was the French name of this movie. The salesman is the English name. And le client is not the translation of the salesman. Le client, it means the customer, and the salesman is on the other side. Why they changed the name? Because in the same year, it was another French movie called the salesman, so they changed the name of the movie. So as you see, the 3 different languages, and not the direct translation, comes for this movie by Asghar Farhadi, which is a proper name, and hashtag Cannes 2016, hashtag competition. And then, this is the text that we should analyze, and there are some multimedia, and then there are the multilinguality, that they keep the Furushande Asghar Farhadi, so that's the French one, and then hashtag another information. So, and then some metadata like retweets, number of the likes, etc. So as you can see, that's a very complicated language. So itself is considered a complete different language than English or French or the conventional languages that we are dealing with. So how could we analyze those languages? How we can do the pre-processing of the linguistic pre-processing of the social media? That's the the chapter 2 of this book. We talk about those in detail. How we can do the tokenization, part of speech tagging. Basically, the tokenization. We have a big text. How we can do the hashtag separate to the word. The different punctuation. How we can separate all of those aspects. Part of speech taggers, chunker, parser, what is the noun, what is the verb, what's the combination of that. In each language, the Arabic language is completely different from the English language. So what is the structure of the language? And the name entity recognition, for example, I said, the name of the person, name of the organization, how we can detect all of those. And then the additional adaptation that we need from the traditional NLP on pre-processing analysis, like the text normalization and some adaptation that we do for multilinguality. So I personally work on the couple of languages, including French, English, and Arabic. So, for example, for Arabic, the challenges that we had is basically this letter that we are using in Persian, in Arabic, in Dari, the language used in Afghanistan, they are exactly the same, the letter, some of the language they have a 4-letter less or more, but it's basically the same letter. But the language is completely different. So how could we distinguish those languages? So that's the language identification. So once we identify which one is Arabic one, how we can detect the dialect of the language. So basically 22 countries speak Arabic. And each of them, geographically, if you look at that, from Morocco, Egypt, go to Iraq, so they are in a different continent. So they are communicating through the standard Arabic, but the dialect is completely different. So, in the social media, the people use the everyday languages. So, and then, how we can categorize those dialects, and, for example, for machine translation project that I was involved, how based on this dialect, we can identify the dialect, transform it to the standard Arabic, and then apply the machine translation of the Arabic to English. So all of those processes, we need the specific adaptation for social media languages. So once we did this pre-processing, now we are going through the semantic analysis. So basically in the chapter 3 of the book, we discussed about those tasks, how we can identify the geolocation. Because most of the tags, more than 75% of the data that we had on a specific project, we didn't have the geographic location tagged. And the system that we developed for that, there are lots of ambiguity. If I tell you London, where is the location of London?
Could be Canada.
Could be Canada, it could be UK. I believe in US we have a London too.
Yeah.
Same thing, Ontario. So, how we could make sure we are talking about which region. So, it's important, to do this ambiguization for that. As I give you an example of when we do the market analysis, we want to see if we do the market analysis in UK or market analysis of this product and then gather the review of the people from Canada. So, it's a big change. Opinion mining and emotion analysis. So you want to release a product, so what the people think, what the user think about that. They like it, they hate it, why they hate it, why they like it. So it's extremely important. We talk about the techniques of the event and the topic detection. So I will go give you some demo of the system that we developed for that. And my specialty is summarization and machine translation. So I spend more time on that aspect of the summarization and machine translation. And that's funny is now when you look at the ChatGPT and all this generative AI, one of the most feature of this generative AI is automatic summarization. Mm-hmm. And I did my PhD. I'm not telling you when, but I finished it in 2005. So 25 years ago, at my PhD dissertation, it was on the automatic summarization of the legal document. On the legal document, not any documents, especially on the legal document. And after that, I have my startup company received a couple of $1 million funding from the Canadian government, and I developed this technology for the market. And I worked 15 years in this company. So, and then after that, when we know what are the pre-processing, what are the tasks, what are the techniques, we apply on the specific application. So the application like a healthcare application, the application like the other application. For example, on the healthcare, the couple of projects that we had, it's when I was working with a hospital, so worked with the Department of Surgery, and they know when the patient, they go to the heart surgery and they release it, one of the known effect of that is the depression. But they don't have enough resources, they don't have enough nurses to send to monitor every single person they're released from the hospital after the heart surgery. So we had a project with the patient consent. We can monitor some social media aspect of them for a specific period of time, and then we look at the how the post was made in, and if we find the big sign of the depression, we can flag it and then tell the nurse, maybe you should check on that person because of those situations. Or another healthcare application project that we had PhD students that work on the subreddit, and then they look at the conversation, communication to prevent the harms That's by the teenagers. Some teenagers, they have the mental health, they can't communicate, they don't want to suicide, but they harm themselves to send a message, and then they are visible, they're talking on the social media and the Reddit. So how could we gather those information and help those people? Financial application, how we can predict the stock market from the social media. Today, imagine a company releases a new product, they have the PR about the product, the people, they start, the early adopter, they buy this product, what they think, all of those, they have a big impact on the stock market prediction. Predicting the voting intention. So, before we go to the vote, they know what we will do that. So, all of those aspects, we could find it from the profile of the people, and then there are lots of the investment on the predicting of the voting intention. Security defense, disaster response aspect. For example, for disaster response, recently we had the big fire in LA, and actively there were people on the Instagram, they offer their houses via the Airbnb to hosting the people. So, all of those, it was, through the hashtags, just direct a message, so the people can find each other and help each other. So, there's already lots of the aspect on the social media we can use it. And application for entertainment. Before I came to Hollywood, I didn't have the entertainment had such a big industry, and heavily they rely on the opinion of the user and the social media. So if they don't have the green pass from the people, they never produce a season 2 or season 3 of a show. So it's heavily invested on for the application of the social media for entertainment. And also the social media monitoring. So social media monitoring, with my company, I had a big project on the social media monitoring. I will just give you a quick overview about that. So what we did for the social media monitoring, it was a platform that developed for the journalists and also for the security. So basically we work with the two target audience. So we gather the information from social media, and we define the specific task. So what is the specific task that you want to monitor social media? And what is the event of interest? What particular event, for example, are you monitoring the event like Olympics? So upcoming Olympic in LA, or the specific events that you want to monitor. So what are the features of those specific events? And then, based on the definition of the task, now we can perform the different tasks and apply the appropriate algorithm, like the sentiment analysis. What is the identification of the time of the event, the different location of the event, the geolocation tags, machine translation when the multilingual aspect is involved, and automatic summarization, summarize all the events in a short paragraph for a quick review of that. And then once all of those information from non-structural information comes to the structured information, now we can have the quick search with the interactive visual interface. So basically, I'm giving you a quick snapshot of what we developed at that time. Username and password. My Natalie developer called it Bill Gates. Bill was the username and the password was Gates. So they can create the event. So for example, journalism wants to monitor an event, create an event. What's the keywords specifically they're looking for? What is the languages? English, Spanish, and French is supported. What is the start and the end time of the event you want to monitor for 2 months or for 2 weeks, so you can specify it. So the event is created, and after that, you run the machine over that specific period of time, and anytime the journalist can look at that and hear what is extracted. So what is the most important keywords that's highlighted for that event? What is the most important images from social media? what are the event, what is the pictures pop up, what is the people have the most influence, which part of the globes they have the most volume of the information, and the machine translation toward the different languages that we developed was an in-house machine translation. So much before the Google Translate, we started working on that, and the sentiment analysis. Those sentiment analysis was not just about the positive or negative sentiments, but it was the ruler of the different colors. So in this way, we can estimate what is the sentiment toward that specific event. And then, the additional information like the most prominent hashtags that help the visual analysis. So for this purpose, journalism, create an event, monitor through the different aspects, and then, have the dashboard to decide, it's time to write an article about that, what they want to change, so they have the in control of that very specific period of time. So another important thing that I want to mention when you are using any machine learning or any generative AI is you should be aware of the evaluation metrics, how you evaluate the output of the machine. So for the general public, when you're using a generative AI, don't be satisfied of one model. Try two different models and see how the different models work. Maybe one is better than others. So the evaluation metrics, usually we have we have some automatic metrics like the blue or rouge that's basically developed here in California, and the rest of the globe use it. Or there are the, for example, for rouge or blue is for machine translation mostly, and the rouge is for automatic summarization. It's look at when you have a translation of the consecutive word, and then you have the human translation, how many words they are following the gold standard. So based on that gives you some scores. But what I want to mention here, without going to the specification of the evaluation, is you should look at that, what is the task you try to achieve? Is the model good for your task? So we can evaluate in intrinsic or extrinsic. So intrinsic is look at for example, if I want to develop a machine translation, is look at what is the specific blue score for that task. It's the intrinsic. But the extrinsic, that means, is it this machine translation enough for the task that I want to do? For example, we have here people from the ITS, and imagine somebody talking Spanish and ask a question about the network. So, and then answer is translated in English and then back to this person. So, isn't this translation enough for the person to understand and then, find a solution for that? If it's enough, tick. So that's good. So that's the extrinsic evaluation. That means for that specific task, your algorithm is good enough. So we should consider these two kinds of the evaluation. And also, especially now with the generative AI, we should consider the loss of the bias and the problem of the fairness that we have, how we could develop the specific metrics and apply those metrics for it. So the new chapter that's added to the new edition of the book, is talking about lots of the generative AI technology that's added, and the new chapter about the ethics and what is the ethical consideration for social media. So the list that I have here, it's not completed list, it's just to give you some idea about the problem we could have with the generative AI, like a hallucination, like a truthfulness, reliability. So we are talking about the hallucination. That means when we ask the system something and replace of say, I don't know, it will start telling the story for you. And it's hard for us, especially on social media, that people share information and they add their comments and reshare it and etc. etc. So at some point, how could we stop this spread of the misinformation? So, and then, when we want to analyze those information, there are lots of non-relevant information in that. So yeah, he's an example of one of my paintings that I drew during the pandemic. It was Mona Lisa sitting with the Apple Watch and waiting that the quarantine finish. So one of the problems that I had in this painting, I want to put the watch, but usually we wear the watch on the left hand, but the Mona Lisa, they had the right hand over the left hand, and then it was covered the watch. So for the painting, I should re-engineering all the position and then position the watch actually on the left hand. So it was the re-engineering of the posture and everything. But when I give this painting as an input to the generative AI, especially for that model, I use the OpenAI. So as you can see, it has the actual Mona Lisa, the right hand over the left hand. You have a little bit of the Apple Watch, you see, but it makes sure, add another watch so the message is completely passed. So as you can see, the human solution toward the problem is completely different from the machine solution that's provided. So, and I draw your attention here because when we are applying generative AI or ChatGPT on a problem, everything is black box for us. We can't go and then check back and forth between the neurons, what's happening. But when we are looking at the visual output, we have a better understanding of where the problem could be. So the problem of the truthfulness, how we can make sure what is the reality is aligned with what is generated by the machine. Talking about the bias, talking about the objective that we have. Alignment of the model, how we make sure the output of the model is aligned with the value that we have in our society. And each society, is different. We have the Hispanic society, we have the Muslim society. Each of us, we have a different value. How we could make sure these outputs are aligned with those values. Racism, sexism, and cultural bias. I gave you an example at the beginning, so you can see here the painting, the original painting, and then what we have. So it's the Middle East woman, but when we generate automatically, the context is missing. Is the white woman, and because the limited data that we have, it was the algorithm mostly is developed in the westernized place. So how could we reduce this sexism, racism, and improve the output of the system? So talking about the ethics, it's really, really important. I want to just give you a quick overview of how it's important and how it's important for the future, because now we are generating more data, and then if our data is still biased, so we develop the algorithm based on those data, and then we deploy for the rest of the globe. So it's very important to be aware of that. And the last point I want to mention is the data privacy. So how could we make sure our data are protected? Because there's a prediction is by 2026, all the data over the internet is consumed. And all the data that we have, all the generative AI, they use it. So there's no more data. So what will happen? That means AI stop, because we consume all the data. There's no more data. There's no more public data. So what are the corporations are targeting? So it's called the data hunger, and that will be a war after that. Who has more access to the private data? So we should be aware of those problems that we are coming. So how we are concerned about the privacy violation, the data breaches, or that's the other bias that will incorporate it. So as a summary of this talk, I want to mention how the AI could have a big impact on our life through the different type of the data, especially the social media. What are the challenges? What we should be aware of the different metrics of the quality of the output of the machines, and use this AI in a responsible way. One side for us, for the computer scientists, for our students, and other side for the people who use it. So be aware of those impacts. So as I said, these are the three books that's published, and then the fourth book is upcoming. So one of my painting is on the cover. Is basically Atlas is having the glove and taking the selfie for Instagram. And thank you very much for your listening. So that was the Twitter at that time, and now it's X.
And I'm a communications major here at LMU.
Hi, my name is Milan Tangarala. I am a film production student and computer science minor, and I'm a senior.
Hi, my name is Rehana Zara. I am a junior computer science major with a statistical data science minor.
So basically, we're just going to do a Q&A with Dr. Farzindar. We all prepared some questions, and I'm sure you're all wondering the same thing, so let's get into it. First question is, how does natural language processing contribute to understanding the dynamics of social media networks, such as how misinformation spreads or how communities are formed based on language use?
That's a good question, because I can answer this question from the perspective of the algorithm and the computer scientist. So you are students in communication study. What do you think?
Honestly, I think natural language processing is not something really I'm familiar with. I'm more familiar with social media aspects of it.
Yeah, you can explain from the communication aspect of it.
Yeah, I think this is something, for me, I see it as that puts political targeting in danger. So I think it has a lot of potential of changing people's opinions and views based on what they interact with on social media. So if they kind of consume more misinformation, then they're just going to keep getting that misinformation back on back. And I think natural language processing is something that would kind of, if paid attention to, could fix that.
Right, so what you're saying is completely true. So imagine, we have a video they have several views. So the algorithm, how it's thinking is that if a video gets more views, it's more relevant and it's promoted. So we have this problem with the algorithm, during the Black Lives Matter, it was, for example, a video that was it was violent toward a black person, so a person in color, and this video gets some view, and the algorithm is stupid. It thinks, it gets view, they should promote it, and it promotes and more show this video to the other people. So we need the additional aspect, using those algorithms to say, okay, it's not just a number of the view. We need more insight of that and analyze the content, and based on that, then promote that.
Hi. So, social media has given us access to, by far, more opinions than ever in human history, through things like comments and posts and videos, things like that. So what effect might this have on users' abilities to actually form their own opinions? And how may opinion mining be used to manipulate the reputation and opinions via social media?
So the question that you're asking, it could answer in the two ways. Once again, we can look at from the technical perspective. You said, okay, we are mining this information and here the opinion based on is it the positive, is it the negative, and is it the where we can, what is the weakness, what is the strength of that. But in the same time, it depends who wants to use this information, who wants to show this information for the target communities. That is the part, it's the, as I said, this is the interdisciplinary aspect because we are working on the algorithm side, but on the other side, we should look at the question about the communities on the social media when we are look at this is the community of the profile of the people with that's the age, that's the location, that's these are the community of the people. The people play soccer together, the club they have together, and then their opinion it's matter toward the specific things. So we can narrow down the community to have a better, precise opinion mining. But once again, it's a double side. So in the same time, you can use this powerful algorithm and target them for the specific thing, like in the political aspect or the targeting for the voting. So we should be careful about that aspect as well.
In healthcare applications, you mentioned using NLP to assess depression levels from online therapy to aid clinicians. Can you elaborate more on AI tools in mental health care?
Right, yeah. One of the projects that we had and we mentioned in the book, it was we had a big data set of the people that are communicating together on the tweets, and it's called bell rings. So the people, they can write it and they have this hashtag. That means this topic is talking about the mental health. So this corpus that we are working on, that it was specifically for that, and that was helpful because sometimes as a parent, the children have the depression, so we don't know how to deal with that. So with this tool, we try to educate the parent how to communicate with their children. And in the same time, for the children, they had this problem, but they think they are the only person in the world that have this problem. But how they can communicate with the other group, that was extremely helpful. So that was one of the projects that we work on it.
What ethical considerations should be taken into account when applying NLP techniques to analyze social media data for research or communication purposes?
So, are you interested more on the ethical aspect, or you are more interested on the...
So I'm saying, like, how do we know the truthfulness and the reliability of the algorithms when doing, like, research or for communication, reasons?
Right, so the truthfulness is basically the truthfulness that we want to know, that I apply my engine on the data and it's produced something. So how this information is produced is aligned with the reality. So we want to measure that one. So now there are a very active research community on the measuring those truthfulness, the measuring the bias. So, and that's extremely important because it affects everybody's life. So, for example, my students, they come to me and said, okay, I write a CV, but I never get any call back when I apply. So that's important to know that how the algorithm they work is that they see some X number of the examples. But if your CV is not written in that particular type of the example, you will never get a chance. So the output of the system, you think you are doing something good, but how you could evaluate that. So all of those is very important. For example, if you are a student from Middle East and a woman and working in as engineer, but previously, and the historical CV of this company, never this type of the profile was higher. So no matter how you are a strong person, you don't have a chance that your CV passed toward this robot. So it's extremely important to know. That's why I said based on the task, we should make sure the output of the system satisfies the task that we are doing.
So you spoke briefly earlier about AI-powered recommendation algorithms and the effects that they may have on what people watch and consume. So on that note, what impact do you think that these algorithms may have on social cohesion and the spread of information and misinformation? And on the topic of misinformation, what safeguards do you think should be put in place to prevent the spreading of it?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning your recommendation, because the recommendation system is one of the important tasks. So that's why we open a new course next fall for data mining based on the RegSys. It's very important because for example, you are from the SFTV. On Netflix, they mentioned more than 85% of the movie they watch on the Netflix is based on the recommendation system of the Netflix. So that means you spend 1.5 hours or 2 hours of your time, but everything is based on this recommendation. So it's extremely important You want to purchase a product on Amazon, is based on the recommendation of Amazon. You want to listen to music on Spotify, is based on the, the recommendation system of Spotify. In the same time, if this recommendation system is based on the misinformation and promote those misinformation, it could be very dangerous. So we should be careful about that. And my recommendation is to you, when you receive the information, especially on social media, and you want to share it with anyone, just double check what is the source of this information. Just think a little bit and then go back. Who share it? Is it a person, trustworthy person share it? Add the comments, number of the people that view it or comments. So develop some measure of the validation for that before believe it or share it. That's very important.
In your talk, you highlighted challenges in detecting dialects, especially spoken ones like Arabic, which makes identifying nuanced speech patterns such as like jokes and sarcasm more difficult. What solutions do you propose to address this?
Right, so first of all, for machine, it's extremely hard to consider those nuances of the human language. So what is the joke? So, but now, the joke is one of the dynamic field. I have a couple of PhDs that work on the creating the jokes and the creating the poems. So how the large language model can be funny and communicate with human. But it's extremely difficult, as mentioned to Dr. Jarvis, we work on the analysis of the lyrics for the history of the fish for the past 40 years. And, human sentiment is quite challenging. So the metrics, the evaluation metrics that we have is much lower than the regular text, but we should consider the nature of the input as well. So that's why we have the hybrid method of the validation of the human validation and the machine validation because of the nature of those data.
I think maybe you want to open the question for the public. Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
If any of you have questions, we can take questions for Dr. Farzindar.
I'm going to insist that we use the mic not only for the recording, but also for any friends who are hard of hearing. So if you have a question, I'll run the mic to you.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So, question for the students, right? Social media hasn't been around very long, but it already has experienced changes. Can you give me a notion of what your current social media consumption patterns are today? Just so I know who's using what and how much. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can go one by one and then share your experience.
I am a journalist for the Loyalist, so I consume my news on social media as well sometimes, even though not just on social media, since there's misinformation and threats of other stuff. But X was something I'm not very a big fan of, but TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, pretty much all over the place. But yes.
Yeah, so on the topic of film production at the student level, Instagram is very sort of important for going about making a production. For example, if you're doing your senior or junior thesis films, pretty much all crowdfunding, crew is found through social media. It's very much driven on who you're connected with. When you're getting crew, it's pretty much crucial because that's the number one way I think not just me but other SFTV students can find people to work on their projects. So and promotion as well.
On my day-to-day, I usually use Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but on research on the other, my research side, I also am looking into YouTube Shorts and seeing how short film videos produce a lot of misinformation, whether it's to students or just everywhere around the world, and yeah.
Oh, wow, nice.
I'd just like to add one thing. I think with social media, there's not just factual stuff, but also opinions, which is why I appreciate it so much. as a column writer too. Like I am always interested in how other people are thinking about different things. And I think the reason why Gen Z is super, integrated with social media is because we're always interested in other people's opinions, not just our opinions, which can sometimes cause some, errors, but ultimately I think we all appreciate it.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you.
Question in the back?
Yeah, so my question is about how, even if we have, quality data, quality raw data, how do we balance, the kind of truthfulness with our ethical kind of lens that we put on things? For example, when Gemini was barred, an early version, the AI came out very racist and was saying very racist responses. And so the result of that was that people at Google put, code in where it was more diverse, more inclusive. And the result was that when they gave it a prompt to depict the founding fathers, they included, African Americans and Indians in their depiction of who were the founding fathers. And so my question is, I can value diversity in those things, and how do I balance that with truthfulness? Is there a way for the AI to kind of self-regulate or to self-check, or will that always have to be a human kind of self-referential or applied after the fact?
Right, what you're saying to include, the diverse data is crucial, not only because we want to be the nice people and include the other people, but there are the commercial aspect for that. Because, they Google, or any corporation, they develop their algorithm and their market is not only California, it's the rest of the globe. So, sooner or later, they should include that, because if not, the people in the other side of the globe, they will not use their engine because, it's not satisfy their goal. So, what we are calling, the diversity of data is not just about the, to be nice, to include the people. What is the actual need, When I'm working on the healthcare information, if I don't consider, the other, type of the skin color for the special product that I'm developing and testing. So, the product, I can't sell it, I can't market it. So if you have a solution for the global solution, so you have to consider that.
I recognize the importance of that, but my question was more so when, the AI in the example you used, the hallucinations, is there a way for the AI to check that the information it's giving is accurate, or will that always have to be applied after the fact by some kind of a human?
So that's a good question. For the past couple of weeks, I was working on the how we can work on the prompt engineering. So basically, one of the the job that will create in the future or now is the prompt engineering, is because based on the knowledge that you have, you can ask the system to produce something better. So one of the tests that I will do for the prompt engineering, so I give, as I say, my painting, and I ask them, produce the output. So produce one, okay, they have some problem, etc. So I want to say, what type of the prompt I can give, specific type of the prompt that I can improve that. So I spoke with my colleague, and my colleague said, okay, when we are analyzing the visual communication, one of the technique is the compositional analysis. So basically, what is the light? What is the perspective? What is the content? What is the the message to the content? So I integrate that to my prompt. I said, okay, I provide you more knowledge. So now when you are producing the image from the original painting, consider those structure. And what do you think? And it explains to me first, we consider the structure in this way, in this way, in this way. But when we compare with the open prompt, it's more, free to generate. So, okay, now give me the output. And that was interesting. What do you think? What the more information that you give and you keep the human in the loop, what was the expected output? It's become worse and worse. And I was developing a table, and each time that's generated with this type of the information that I add, and the output is become worse and worse. I said, oh my God, just keeping the human in the loop is
Trying too hard.
it's trying to ignore. And at some point, I become so worried, and this weekend I couldn't sleep about that, because in the news, it was about the big news of the, autonomous, women, the big deployment of that. I said, oh my God, even if we can control for one picture, and even the human information that we are giving, we can't control it, how we can deploy the big number of the weapon and the fully automatic auto decision. So, those kind of the things, that's, we are really concerned about that.
So, thanks again, Professor, for kind of having this talk. So I just wanted to ask this question, because I noticed a lot on LinkedIn that there's a lot of people kind of putting AI-generated comments, like for example, oh, this is an interesting topic, oh, this thing is the future, and then they don't explain it. So I just wanted to ask that, kind of for those using LinkedIn, to get their data for research purposes, how could those researchers filter out, these comments in order to get this really quality human data? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
There are, first of all, when you want to use those data, you should check the API of the system, so how you can log to that and then get the data. So as I said, when I was working in this technology, I would say 15 years ago, Twitter, it was had a very large windows. You can send a query and then gather the X number of the tweets on a specific period of time. For example, if the time it was 1 hour, you can browse those information. And the next hour, you can send another query. And then they shorten this window. It's become to the free version. It's become 30 minutes, that's become 10 minutes, it's become 5 minutes. So that now after, become X, we should check, what is the API now allowed. So, but I would say, the big source of the information. Now Reddit, there are lots of the research community use the Reddit and the subreddits. So that's a good source of information. And based on that, you can analyze it. And then there are lots of the data sets that are ready, so you can use it for research. So Google, they have a service called Google Dataset Search. So by using this search engine, you can access to the specific data sets prepared for the task that you want to use it. So you have access to that, and you don't need to pay if you want to start your project.
Thank you.
No. You mentioned before about having sensationalist or kind of engaging topics for people, especially when it comes to recommendations on social media and such. So say that the user is kind of a passive consumer of information and they end up clicking on or engaging with something that's sensationalist or controversial. And the algorithm sees that they're engaging with this popular topic, therefore they must be interested, and would continue recommending that, which would lead them to consuming more of that topic. So what would you say about the kind of preventing of, or I guess even the nature of, this sort of positive feedback loop that it creates with the user? And is that on the creator of the algorithm in order to shield that and give them kind of a wider breadth of data, or is that more on the user in order to reach out and see more about, outside of the echo chamber, per se?
Yeah, I would say both. There are the one side from the developer of this algorithm and then one side from the user. So as I said, from the developer of the algorithm, based on which type of algorithm we develop our algorithm is important. So now, I don't know if you're familiar with the term AI worker. So the AI worker, there are the people that are cleaning the data. So, for example, OpenAI, they use Kenya, the people there, and they pay $1.25. And they are exposed for 8 hours, 10 hours toward the violence content, and they clean the data. And they are, I read in the LA Times, there's a lawsuit against that, because for the money that they received and for the mental health disorder that they have it for the rest of their lives. There was a lawsuit and there was an investigation. And OpenAI tell them, oh, we pay something like $12, $13 per hour. But through the different channel, until this comes to the AI worker, it's become $1.25. So it was really the shocking things. So that's one part, how could we make sure those data are cleaned before training of the algorithm? That's one thing. The second thing is that when we are developing of the algorithm, what is the goal? Are we consider those measure of the prevention of the, expose those, bad content with the number of the view, how we can prevent those algorithms. And the third one is the responsibility of everybody. We can stop it. You can report it, you can not share it, have the active aspect toward those type of the content.